Hello and welcome, Veronica. I'm so excited to have you here. Partly because you being an author and you found your journey in the second half of your life. And I'm just excited to talk to you about that, like what that journey was about. So why don't you just start us off telling for somebody who doesn't even know who you are? Let's start there.
Okay, great. Well, and the first part of my life, before my writing life, my husband and I started a family business. Well, he had been in business for many years, and we started a berry business. We had a couple of we have property, orange groves and things, and we had some sales and some things happened, and so we decided to go into the blueberry business, and that mushroomed very quickly into a year-round business, marketing, shipping, and growing. And our three oldest sons helped us grow that business. And so we stayed in that business for about 10 years, and we traveled a lot, all over the world, because we were sourcing or either we were selling. And so we were always on the road, as our daughter was growing up and our youngest son. And our then we sold out after 10 years to my husband was 65 at the time and ready to kind of slow down. And the three older boys had a real good handle on the business. So we sold out to them and we moved back to his hometown of Savannah. I was younger than my husband. I'm 18 years younger. And so I was a little bit unsettled. And so I golfed for a while, gardened, read everything I could get my hands on because I'd always been a voracious reader. And then that just didn't, do it for me. So I kind of stepped out, with my husband's urging, and decided I'm going to write a book. I've always wanted to, and these stories are in my head, and I'm just going to write a book. And so I started taking classes because my background was in marketing and banking, and I had no idea about the publishing industry at all. So I began taking an online course for writing. In the beginning, I thought, well, I'm just going to write a romance novel. Well, I was never there. I could never really get that story going. It was always suspense and mystery for me. It's just what I loved to write or to read. And so you should write what you love to read. So my books always went more in the mystery realm. And so it took me about 3 years. I had to rewrite that book quite often because writing is like reading. You can learn it. It's a craft. You can certainly learn it, but you must learn it and you must hone your craft. So I worked with editors, I worked with writing coaches, and I also took every online course. I became a professional student. That's what I always say, a professional online student on writing. And so it took about 5 years before I published my first book. And I traditionally published with an independent publisher, medium-sized independent publisher. And then about a month later, I landed an agent because I had been querying, but I actually sold directly to the publisher. They opened it with a pitch fest. It was kind of like a fluky thing that they would take you without an agent. And then I landed an agent, and I wrote my second book and my third book. And during that time, I realized that in the publishing industry, it wasn't like it was in the old days. If you're a new writer and you don't have a following already, they expect you to do a lot of the marketing, actually. And so I became a little bit disgruntled with that, or disappointed more than that. I didn't cry. And I had a marketing background, and I thought, and my publisher wasn't selling a lot of my first books, and I knew it was a really good book. And so I had, with my agent, who had digital marketing background with Putnam Random House. She was their digital marketing manager before she went out on her own as an agent. And so we went into a Facebook campaign, and we sold probably 85% of the books that were sold over that 5-year contract. We sold them in 1 month. So I already knew that, with the proper marketing, I could sell my books. I knew that. I ran the numbers, and I said I could be profitable. And so my agent and I kind of separated. We were on very good terms, still are. But I decided to go off on my own. And I realized quickly that you must have a backlist, because you make your money as an independent writer on your backlist. So series writing is why it's so popular for independent authors. And I wrote 3 more books. And then when I had 6, I started a marketing campaign. But my granddaughter was also a digital marketer. She, that was her major, and she worked with like the Cancer Society, and she worked with, Diabetes Society. And so she understood, so she helped me brand myself as an author, because that wasn't my specialty. My specialty is in marketing, but it's different than publishing marketing. But she helped me with that during the COVID, because she was working from home, and so she said, I have some time, I can do this for you. And so she branded me, and she really helped me a lot with my, getting me over that hump that you need to understand the digital marketing. And I just took off. And in the first year that I handled my own marketing, the first 8 months, I hit 6 figures in 8 months. And then that was in 2022. And in 2023, I increased that by 30%, and I'm on target to do that again. So I kind of took a step back at 67, because every time I went to a writing event, whether it be a book signing or whether it was a book talk, I always had writers wannabe writers come to me, new writers, and they would say, I would love to write, I just don't know what to do. And there was no one place to send them, because my knowledge came from so many different sources over the years, between books and blogs and classes and coaches and editors. And there was no one place that I could send them to get their training. And I didn't want it to take them 8 years like it took me 8 years, So I stopped, and I was involved with a mastermind marketing, Facebook marketing group of ladies who are very, very talented and very, very successful. I mean, they're 7-figure successful a year. And so they said, and most of them have online businesses with courses. They teach whatever it is that they know, they teach that online, and they've done quite well. And so they pushed me to, and I mentioned that I had so many writers that needed to understand what I already knew. And they said, you should do an online class. So I took 6 months off, and I wrote, and I developed my online class for writers. And that became as much of a passion for me as writing, because there's so many that are and I've had 500 go through that course in the course of the last 4 months. So there's a big need for it. Yeah. And I try to keep my pricing very nominal so that they can come in. It's not, I mean, I have to cover my costs, and of course my time is money, but I don't, that's not my goal. My goal for this particular is to help as many as I can. I feel like that's a calling for me, is to really help them, be able to take them and put them on a path for profitability a lot quicker than I was able to do for myself. So that's my story.
It's amazing. I'm sitting here just absolutely amazed, because first and foremost, I think when we hit midlife and beyond, we often slow down. That's the message we get from society, from, the idea of retirement, of slowing down, of taking it easy. But just listening to your story, I see passion, I see purpose, I see the calling, I see you just completely lighting up when you tell your story. And I think for many of us, that's what's missing in midlife and beyond, is that what you have found almost organically, but you've taken that organic knowledge and you've turned it around into a whole piece that's serving you well, and also serving other writers well.
Well, I hope
It's
so.
such a
Yeah.
beautiful story.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so. And I do hope that I have writers that are going to, benefit from that. They're already, my program, I have one-on-one, and I also have a mentorship program within that. And so I meet with them every other week on Zoom. And then of course I can do one-on-one when we start doing the strategic planning, because every author has a different path on marketing. It's not a one-size-fits-all program, and it's constantly changing. It's like, it's constantly changing. Facebook and Amazon. And I'm like, right now I'm doing Amazon digital ads. And so, I'm able to do, and so I started working with, and I don't always try to I don't try to be a jack of all trades. I don't do my own covers. I don't upload. I don't format. I have people that do that. It's my team that puts that together. And I typically use a team, and I have my website designer. I don't try to do that because I have to put my time where it brings back the most return, and also that I enjoy. And I do like the creativity of ads, and I have to do my own ads, but I don't usually do my videos. My granddaughter did them for me when she was with me, but she's moved on to bigger and better things now. And so, but she did teach me in that process, but I did farm it out, but they don't know your product like you do. And so what came back to me was not what I think my readers are looking for, because, it's too dark, and my mystery suspense are not really dark. They're not psychological. They're not deep. So it's just a mystery suspense that you can move along with. And I try to build my characters so that you kind of fall in love with them and want to be their friends, kind of thing. And so I ended up having to do my own videos, and I was just finishing one for Who's Watching Maddie, which was my second book that I wrote. But I'm really excited that Amazon is now allowing us to, or at least I'm not sure if this is a beta version, because I get a lot of opportunities with Amazon because I'm an all-star writer for them, because I'm a KDP girl. And in KDP, if you're an all-star author, then you get bonuses. I don't know if you're familiar with that. But and because you are an all-star author, they give you a lot of opportunities in beta. And so I'm able to put my video ads on, whereas most people, when they advertise, you just see the book cover, and I have a video. And so I'm putting my videos on right now. And I just started that yesterday, but I'm very excited about it because I understand that that's, you get 48% more clicks with that. And that means a lot to a writer, because it's all about money. And typically, if they read my blurb, and they go in, then if I sell my first book, then they're going to read my whole backlist, because they like it. They like my style of writing. So one book sale equals, 4 books for me. And even in KDP, that equates to like $12, for one book. So that's an exciting time. It's an opportunity. And Amazon is really good to their writers. And if you think about it, they've given us a platform to be writers and not have to have a publisher and, kind of travel by that. And you can be in control of your own destiny. And at 67, I didn't have time, my time was limited. I mean, how many more years are you going to have? And I just wanted them to count.
And plus, you don't have to wait 2 years to get your book out.
Right.
That was my experience with my first publisher book, is that they wanted to wait 18 months before we could get the book out.
Right.
And, so that experience was interesting. And I've just gone back to self-publishing because I love the control. I love to be able to say exactly how my book looks. And well, so let me ask you this. Of all the books that you have written, do you have a favorite?
Well, I'm asked that a lot, and I guess I probably prefer, I think my favorite is probably Three Faces in the Mirror. Three Faces in the Mirror is set in Savannah, and it has a really cool backstory. Also, Who's Watching Maddie has a really cool backstory as well. But all my books are the premise is based on a true event that I've experienced or someone I know has experienced, and I just build the fiction from that true event. So I guess Three Faces came about because my husband had got a call from a distant relative who was looking for her birth parents. And so she was using the new DNA, spit in the test tube and send it in. And she was connected to his family. And he comes from a very large family. His father had 19 brothers and sisters, or 18 brothers and sisters. So there was a large family with 2 different mothers. His mother died during childbirth on the 7th child. And so they were sharecroppers. And so in the South Georgia area. And so we had no idea. And my husband's very young. He was the baby of his family. And so there's a lot of years in between. And he just didn't know anything. And so he was kind of like, I don't know if I want to get involved because, my cousins, I don't want anybody to be upset. And I don't know, I don't have any idea. It turned out it was a different side of the family. The DNA was there, but it was a different side of the family. But in that process, she was so motivated and she stayed in touch with us and she was tenacious and she stayed in touch and she was always after me for information because I was the writer and I have a lot of this information on his family because one day I'd like to write a book because he has a very interesting grandfather. There's this incident that happened that was very interesting and I think I could really write that. But I couldn't help her, but she just kept on. And my husband came to me several times and he said, Vicki, I've never seen anybody so tenacious. And he said, you need to write about that. That would make a great book. And I'm like, well, that's been done so many times, you know, adopted children or find their parents, and I thought that, and they've done television shows about this. I mean, it's just there's nothing new there that I can offer my readers, so I just kind of sloughed it off. He came to me 4 times, and when he comes to me 4 times, it's kind of like a sign to me because he's kind of like a little bit my nemesis, and I'm like, well, what could I do to that story to make it different? Like what could I bring to my readers that would be entertaining and different? Because as a writer, that's our only job, right? Is to fiction writers are to entertain. That's our job. And so I kind of came up with something that was very different. And so I love that story because it has the backstory of my the true story. And then I developed that, and it was a really interesting story. I love it. I love it because it's set in Savannah, and I love Savannah. And then I just love the characters in that. And then I have some crossover characters with the second book, In a Father's Footsteps. And that's another favorite of mine because my editor at the time and my agent said, don't write this book. Don't write this book because we don't know where to market it. We don't know what shelf to put it on because you have, because the male character was at war. He was in special services. He was in Afghanistan, and the female was at home here in Savannah. And they said, it's just 2 different books. There's too hard to market. That book was my #1 seller for a year. And I didn't write it until I went indie. And then finally I just said, I'm going to write that book. It's just too great of a story to write it, not to write it. So I wrote it, and that's but 3 Faces is probably my best selling book. And then In a Father's Footsteps just is right behind it. I mean, it's really good. And then of course my series they're just fun. They're just fun mystery suspense series. Yeah. Which book did you read?
Amazing. While you were talking, I was just thinking, when the books are so different, they stand out. Sometimes those are what we need.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Saturated.
Well, I have, yeah. My reviews are so many times my reviewers will say, I've never read a book like this. In that particular, in A Father's Footsteps, I've never read a book like this. And then of course there's a little bit of the afterlife in that book, and so that I was a little afraid of because people are very strongly opinionated about the afterlife and what happens. And so for me, so I've only had 1 bad review that said this went off on a new wave kind of thing, and I'm not interested in that, and but most of them, but I had one because it's about a child, a woman who takes a child to term, knowing that she's just so that they could use this an organ transplant to keep other children alive. And it was a big deal. And I read about this. Charles Krautheimer, I'm not sure if you know about him, but he was a wonderful journalist. He died about 3 or 4 years ago. And he had 2 books that just a culmination of all of his writings over the years. And my husband was reading it because he loves him, and he pointed out this one short story that he wrote, an article, and I read it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that would be I could write such a great book with that, because it's a moral dilemma book. And there's no antagonist, except for the situation. There's no right or wrong. It's just you're on this side or that side. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's just a difference of opinion. And I love that. I love those moral dilemmas. And that's what the Savannah women's series is, and that's what women's fiction typically is. It's just moral dilemmas that we're dealing with, and there's no right or wrong. So I love that story because of that. And I had a lady who reviewed that book and said, wow, I hope that the young man who gave my son his, I believe it was his liver, if I'm not mistaken, it was an organ, looks down from heaven and knows how important he is in our life. And I thought, wow, this is why I write.
Wow.
This is it. This one right here, this one review.
Oh,
Yeah, I know. It sent chills down me. I mean, that if I had never gotten another review at all, that was enough for me for my whole writing career, because I thought, wow, and then I had another lady say, just the other day, one of the newer reviews on it was, oh, it reminds me of after my husband died and how he came back to visit me. And it was just such sweet memories that you brought back to me. And that's been many years ago. And I just always remembered my sister-in-law telling me when my brother-in-law died that he came to her in her dream, and it was so real. And I've had other people come to me, my loved ones come to me in my dreams, and it's so real, And so, and I've had a vision, and I know it's real, and it's such a gift, because then there's no question what happens when you die. There's something. You might not know what it is, but there's something. And so for me, that was a gift. And I tried to give that back in that book, in that story. And it's one of my highest rated books. It's a 4.6 out of 5
I
with
can't wait to
thousands
read
of
that
reviews.
one.
And so
That
that's a
one
lot
sent
of
the
5-star
chills
reviews.
down me.
Yeah.
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 So
So
we were talking about that. That's for sure. So what is your writing day like? What do you
well,
ever
I'm
get
an early riser. Yeah, I get asked this question a lot at book talks. It's very writers are very interested in this, but I get up early. I'm an early riser. I was up at 5:30 this morning. I typically rarely sleep past 6, and it's quiet, and I start my day. My husband reads 2 papers every day digitally, and so he stays in our bedroom for about 2 or 3 hours. Sometimes if I'm writing, I go in there and I write on my iPad in there. But for the most part, I stay at my desk. Like right now, I'm usually at my desk. So I have about 2 or 2.5 hours of uninterrupted time, maybe even 3. And then I get up and I get dressed, and I have, we have our breakfast and talk to my husband and whatever. And then he goes to his shop because he retired and went into woodworking. You can see behind me some
Oh,
of his work.
beautiful.
Yeah. And so he just does that for family and friends, but it keeps him busy, and he loves it, and he's very talented. And so he goes into his shop, and then, I work until I get back to my desk in about probably about 10:30 or 11. And I'm here until about 1 or 1:30, and then I make our big meal of the day. And then I get back to my desk around 3, and I work till about 5:30. I try not to work past 5:30, and then I'm through for the day. So I try to have 3 uninterrupted hours of writing, just writing. And then the rest of the time in my day, especially with the new online class, because it's 2 different businesses I'm running, then I have to take care of my business, because business doesn't run itself, So.
So what do you do for fun?
Well, we live very remotely. I make fun of this all the time. We live in South Georgia on the outskirts of Savannah. We're about an hour out of Savannah on a river, in a river community, a very small fishing village. And we are so remote that we are an hour from a Walmart and an hour from Starbucks. So that's how far, because those things are everywhere. So how far we are, we live out. So if we go into town once a week, and we, do the groceries, and anything that we have to do, we do then, about once a week. But we do live in a community. So we have a golf course, and, but it's just a very remote community. So I have
It's
a
like
lot
the
of friends
perfect
here.
place for a writer.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah,
Being
it's
remote.
perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And I don't know, before we lived here, we lived in Amelia, and I'm not sure, Amelia Island, and I'm not sure if I would have ever become a writer because it was so much socially to do on the island. But here, there's not quite that much to do socially. And so I'm become a little bit of a hermit, I have to admit. But we have 5 children and 12 grandchildren and 4 great grandchildren. So we have a lot of company. We have a lot of company.
Yes, you are busy. Wow.
Yeah, we are.
So I've got 2 more questions for you. One is the word passion. When you think of that word, what does it mean to you and how do you define it?
I think passion for me is what gets me up in the morning and makes me want to look forward to my day. And I always think that's important to have something that you are looking forward to. And for me, I've always been career oriented. And so I just kind of gravitate to the business side of life even. And so I enjoy it very much. So that's passion for me, whether it be in a relationship, like with my husband, being very passionate in our relationship, we're very close. Or whether it's for what I'm doing with my time. But yeah, that's what it means to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. So wrapping this up, when you think of someone who's in midlife and maybe feeling stuck, maybe feeling like, okay, I'm too old, it's too late, I'm feeling like there's nothing really to look forward to in the second half of life, what would you tell them?
Well, I think I would probably give the same advice that I give to my writers when they say they have writer's block, right? Because writers, constantly or they procrastinate or they just can't, and there's a lot of reasons. And this is what I tell them, and this is what I teach, is just write. So in their case, I would say just find something to do, volunteer, look at different new careers that you can do from home if you don't want to go into an office. Look at, just browse and find something that you like to do. What do you like to do? And then take that to the next level. I always tell my writers, look, I give them little tips on how they can start writing again, but then I say, and if that doesn't work, then write something, write about what happened to you yesterday, write about the conversation that you had, because once your brain is a muscle and you can train it. And so I believe that from the bottom of my heart. And I think that if you just train your muscle, your brain, that you are going to get up and get busy, then I think, whether it be walking, just start walking, and then thinking about what it is that you want to do with your life. Because whether it be gardening, I mean, I had a lot of fun years gardening. I made kind of a monster. I had like 150 rose bushes. I mean, I always do a little bit over. My kids say, you're really extra. You're a little extra. But so I told my husband we've made a monster out of our environment because we never leave. So I have koi ponds and fountains and all these things that I have to take care of. But
Goodness, it must be beautiful.
well, we do love it. We do love it, and we live on the
Beautiful
river.
when you walk
Yeah,
out there.
we love it. We love it.
Sometimes I think that's another indication of passion, is when you're willing to take life to the next level.
Yeah,
And in your case, when you find something you love to do, you really ran with it.
yeah,
Whether it was the gardening, the writing, the business that you guys had, or having children and
yeah.
grandchildren and great grandchildren.
Yes, we have a lot. We have a lot.
What a beautiful life.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you
We
so
enjoy it.
much for sharing. Is there
Well, thank
anything
you.
else on your mind that you want to share before we wrap up?
No,
Any more
no.
pieces of wisdom?
No, I'm just very honored that you wanted to talk to me, and I'm so pleased that you enjoy reading my books. And if I can, are you a reader, a digital reader? Do you read digitally on iPads or?
I have both because when I travel, I have everything on my Kindle for
Right,
travel.
right.
But when I'm at home, I want real books. I
Yeah,
love underlining. I love being able to just take a book and just randomly open it again. I just finished my first novel, and oh, let me just look at
is it Your
I do, I have it. So this was my first one, and it just went out in, I think, September and November.
so this is
I used a pen
fiction.
name for it.
Uh-huh. And
And
what's the genre?
it's romance, basically. I learned so much from writing it. I have so much more of a way to go.